This girl's 18th birthday, her father gave her a strange, broken necklace. The necklace is not only rusty, it is full of scratches of varying shades. She wants to know why, but her father won't explain. He only says it has a special meaning. And yet, when she turned on the television, she was shocked to find the necklace was exactly the same as the one worn by the missing girl on the news. The girl couldn't believe her eyes. She took it off and compared it. It turned out to be the same down to the last detail. She immediately took out her mobile phone and took pictures. Then she opened her computer to try to find the truth. But when she entered the victim's name, she was shocked by what she saw. In what was once a peaceful and quiet town, she was shocked by what she saw. And what's even more frightening is that the killer was still clueless. A chill runs down the girl's spine. She doesn't know what her father has done, but she had a sneaking feeling that he was involved. So she boldly went into her father's room. Just as she pulled open the drawer, she found a suspicious narcotic. Next, she found a photo album, but when she opened it, she felt a shiver run down her spine. For in this seemingly uneventful album, there was a detailed record of every victim. However, before she could think about it, the sound of a car suddenly came from outside the door. It was her father who had returned. The girl rushes to load up the anesthetic and close the drawer. Then, in a panic, she ran out of the room before her father could get in the door, turning off the television with the news on. Now she had to play it cool. She took the bag from her father's hand, purposefully looking very relaxed, but the eerie gloves on her father's hands. Still, the girl's mind is made up. Father and daughter are watching the show as usual, but the girl seems distracted. Now she suspects that her father may be the serial killer. Even her mother's accidental death may have been linked to him. The father sees that she is distracted. He tries to ask her what is wrong, but this move startles the girl. She breaks a plate. The girl rushed down to clean up the crumbs, but she accidentally cut her finger. Seeing his daughter hurt, the father immediately became nervous. He helped her to treat the wound. When she saw how much her father cared for her, the girl suddenly felt that maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe it was not what she thought. But then, late at night, once again, the girl heard a strange noise in the attic. This time, she was even more certain that father must be hiding something from her. So, the next day, the girl took advantage of her father's absence too. She sneaked up to the attic. The cluttered space was filled with all kinds of junk. The girl cautiously searched for clues. However, when she turned around, a large hole has been made in the aged floor. Luckily, it was her room underneath. Otherwise, her father would have found it. The girl continued her search. In a corner, she finds a photograph of her mother's life, and underneath the picture is a mysterious toolbox. It is filled with all sorts of feminine objects. Amongst the bizarre jewelry, there is even a ring full of bloodstains. The girl is shocked. This time she was sure of her suspicions. The girl lays the jewelry on the table, and asked her father if he had anything to do with the case. The father, however, did not admit anything. He said that they were her mother's belongings. He also said that his daughter should not have suspected him. Seeing the father's sophistry, the daughter could not stand it any longer. She took out the necklace and the photo on the news. Seeing that the evidence was overwhelming, the father suddenly became furious and he accused the girl of looking like her dead mother. Looking at this crazy man in front of her, the girl is even more certain that he must be involved in her mother's death. But then she suddenly realizes the danger. She turns and runs upstairs. She locked the door behind her. Even though her father was frantically tapping on it, she didn't dare open the door. She then raised her mobile phone and called the police. She was terrified. She didn't know what he would do to her. But just then, the man covered his daughter's mouth so hard that, not allowing her to make a sound, the girl's eyes were wide and tears were streaming down her face. Her body was trembling. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined that, who was usually so kind and affectionate, would turn out to be such a hideous figure. And yet, it was all because she had discovered that her father was probably the serial killer of young girls. The father snatched up the phone and found that his daughter had called the police. So he took her downstairs. He warned her fiercely that, if she said anything in front of the police, she would be locked up in a mental hospital. Seeing that he had failed to coerce her, the father pretended to be kind and sat down opposite the girl. He made an emotional attack. He knew his daughter too well. After listening to the father's explanation, the girl's heart softened. She looks at this familiar and strange man with tears in her eyes, and imagines that what is happening is a misunderstanding. But just then, The police had arrived. The father uses his daughter's outdoor phobia as a cover. Since her mother died, she had not left the house. She has a strong fear of the outside world. She has to take medication to control her condition, and the prolonged use of it had made her emotionally unstable. The police officer checked with the girl that this was indeed the case. The police were discharged and left. However, when the girl returned to her room, she was shocked to discover that what she had found in her father's drawer, it was indeed a narcotic that could cause a coma. Once again, the girl is in deep despair, but this time she decides to do something about it. So she slipped into the kitchen, barefoot, pretending to pour water, but she hid a knife on her person. However, as she tiptoed back to her room, she was stabbed in the palm of her foot by a hard object on the floor. She pulled out the earring through the pain. She suspected that another girl had been murdered. On the other hand, the father noticed that his daughter had seen his photo album. He came downstairs and tried to teach his daughter a lesson. The girl was completely devastated and questioned her father as to why the victims all looked like her mother. She also suspects that her mother was killed because he found out her secret. The father refused to admit it. He forced her to the corner of the table with a fierce look in his eyes. The girl pulled out her knife. She warned her father not to come any closer. The father, however, did not relent. Instead, he became more violent. He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the knife. The girl dodges the knife, but accidentally cuts his palm. Taking advantage of the situation, the girl ran out of the door. She tried to run outside for help. However, she forgot her fear of the outdoors. She fell down the steps, dizzy. In a haze, she saw her father approaching with a needle. The next thing she knew, she was unconscious. By the time she woke up again, she had been locked in her room by her father. Her mobile phone and computer had been taken away. Even the window was securely fastened. The girl cries out desperately, but her father, who had left the house, did nothing. She tried to save herself, but no matter what she did, the door wouldn't budge. Suddenly, she saw the large hole in the roof through which she had stepped. For a moment, hope was sparked. She got a wooden stick and she kept widening the hole. Then she climbed up into the attic on the box, but it was also securely locked. The girl kept searching for a means of escape. She follows the toys that have rolled down. She found a hole in the wall that led down to the floor, so she scrambled down the stairs to get out through the broken hole in the wall. Just then, however, her father came back suddenly. She held her breath, not daring to make a sound, but the extreme tension. But her feet slipped. Oh no, she's been found out. This man, armed with a large chainsaw, frantically cut open the floor of his own home, but hidden underneath was his terrified daughter. The girl tries to escape, but finds that there is nowhere to go. She knows that having discovered her father's secret as a serial killer, she will not be able to escape. But just as the father is pulling his daughter off the floor, the doorbell rings. The doorbell suddenly rings. It turns out to be his daughter's psychiatrist. The father makes up an excuse. He wants to get rid of her. However, the daughter behind the door suddenly calls out to her. She invited the doctor into the room to treat her. The father's face changed. He guessed what his daughter wanted to do. He pretended to listen and sat beside her, but in fact he watched their every move. But no matter how much the girl hinted, the doctor never saw anything wrong. The girl was so anxious that she has a sudden idea. She writes a message of help under the pretext of making tea, and then pressed the note under the cup. She also poured the stolen anesthetic into her father's tea, but when the doctor lifted the cup of tea, the doctor did not see the note. Instead, he dropped it on the floor. The girl looked at her with a disappointed expression, unaware that the father had already noticed the scene. The treatment was soon over. On the way out, however, the doctor unexpectedly picked up the note by mistake. At this point, both father and daughter were very nervous. Underneath the father's seemingly gentle smile, by a knife in his hand, seeing the doctor being brutally murdered, the girl was completely stunned. She had no idea that her father was so cold-blooded. She woke up again. However, she had her hands tied. Next to her is the doctor's body. The father has finally come clean. It turns out that he was responsible for the town's serial killings, and the mother's death were all his doing. Even the girl's phobia of the outdoors was caused by his deliberate substitution of medicines. And the reason he did all this, he did it all to satisfy his perverted desire for personal gain, and his desire to control his daughter. Although the answer was already known, but coming from her father's mouth, the daughter felt a deep sense of despair. She stared hard at the beastly man. Now, all that remained between her and her father was hatred. It was then, however, that a turn of events occurred. The anesthetic my father had drunk had finally taken effect. He fell heavily to the ground. He lost consciousness. The girl rushed to hook a knife and cut the rope. She then dialed the police directly. He was safe for the moment, but the locked door and window blocked her way. However, when she turned back once more, she was shocked to find that her father had disappeared. He burst out from the side in an instant. He snarled frantically at his daughter. He knew the truth could no longer be hidden. He would die with his daughter, for even in death, he would not let his daughter out of his grasp. This is a reflection of his monstrous mind. However, just as the father is about to slip the match from his hand, the girl slashes her father's face with a knife. She fled desperately for the attic, and the father, having set fire to the doctor's body, the father, who had set fire to the doctor's body, soon followed. The fire instantly engulfed the house. Father and daughter look at each other from the attic. The girl is no longer panicking. She kept on provoking her father with her words. As a result, the man rushed forward in a frenzy. The next moment, however, he falls into the bedroom downstairs. The girl had deliberately placed a plastic sheet over the large hole. By now, the blaze had spread upstairs. The father was instantly engulfed in flames. Finally, the girl broke the glass of the bathroom and escaped. This time, she finally became less frightened. She smiled heartily because she knew that, after today, there will be a new life.